So I just signed up because I saw there weren't many people signed up. I did it before ahead of time. So I've given this module, this presentation at a couple camps now. It's called "There's a module for that, don't use it." So we have this saying in the group community, "There's a module for that." Any problem you have. So that really leads to really complex sites, maybe overly complex. So I've been on a lot of projects where people need like a really, this actually is not the thing I'm talking about. People with a lot, I've been on some projects where they will install a really complex module like, say, Display Suite for some really small functionality. So as you install a lot of really complex modules, you have the possibility of conflicts with other modules and the overhead of running a lot of code that you actually don't need. So part of this was I was on a team where we had a pull request, and we had some people that were the main developer was originally from like the Ruby on Rails, so he was not sort of in the mind of let's just have a module for everything. So I got a lot of pushback on modules, which I thought was was a good perspective, and it made us have a lot leaner site. So we were looking at entity view modes, and if entity view modes, if you're familiar with it, basically it'll add other view modes to your entities. Like instead of just have full content teaser, you could add another one called featured or whatever. So I was looking at that, and we were using it. I actually like that module. I use it a lot, but I like it in that it is sort of like more minimalist than, say, display mode. But they had a problem with the way it exported features. So I was looking, and there was a patch to change the way it exported the settings. So I could have applied that patch. But then I started to think about, like, what is it actually doing and what is it saving me? So if you look at entity view modes, this is sort of the process of how I would make a view mode. I'd do all this configuration, and I'd export the feature, and then I'd commit that to Git and push it up, and then I'd do a poll on live, and then I'd be done. Which seems simple, but to add one more view mode, this is actually the code I would need. It's like 5 lines of code. And every new view mode I would want to add is like 2 more, actually could be 1 or 2 more lines of code. Because there's a hook called hook entity info alter that allows you to alter the entity information. And one of the things that comes in the entity information is the number of view modes that are available. So, what is the module actually getting us in that case? If you already code. If you don't code, then it gets you ability to add extra view modes. But if you're in a situation where I'm usually at, where I'm always having a little bit of custom code in my module in my sites anyways, I find that I was installing modules to avoid this. And I feel like this is actually quicker than installing a module and configuring it. But then I was talking to people about the sort of idea of, so this is the sort of process between making it in entity view modes above, and then the process, if you already are coding, of just adding the view mode via code. And as you can see, this is actually a lot shorter. And if you're already in a text editor or some code editor, you don't have that overhead of, okay, now I have to run the code, and now I have to get a text editor to edit the files. So it's not a solution for everybody. Like Drupal's great because it allows people who aren't editing PHP to be able to make really powerful sites. But if you find that you are dealing with PHP anyways in Drupal, so I have a couple modules that I put out. One is called so this one is called Minimalist Entity View Modes, and that's what this this module is. And if you see the module file is basically, it loops through a variable, and the variable just sets the view modes according to, you have an index of your entity types, then sub-array of view modes. So I think entity view modes is over 700 lines of code, and a lot of that is the fact that it gets you the ability to do it through the UI. But if that's through the browser, which is not always a benefit, it's a benefit if that's how you make your Drupal sites. But a lot of times times you're already coding. So originally it went from, it's still around 6 lines of code, but now it's also configurable. So here you can actually set it, and this is just an example. So this isn't code that executes. This is just, and it's not Drupal 8, so it's not an annotation. But basically this is saying if you want to set this in a config file, this is how you can do it. So it is more, stuff that I had to do, but the people who would use this code would actually have to just go in and make this array. Or if they wanted to, they could make a UI. So it was just sort of the presentation at camps is sort of a way to sort of talk about like why do we make Drupal sites intentionally the way that is more efficient and less error-free and faster for the way a particular person would develop, or we do it because it's sort of the Drupal way to just add a module. Which I'm not suggesting, like, don't use contrib modules. Like, I make contrib modules and I hope people use them. But I just sort of like think, about when you use a contrib module, are you replacing, how much code are you replacing, and are you already writing code? So, any questions, thoughts? Yeah.
Could you comment on thinking about maintenance versus coding? In other words, someone else takes it up down the road, what have you? What's the trade-off there?
One thing about this is a core hook. So this for Drupal 7 is not going to change. But if you're starting to like, okay, this is only 6 lines of code, but it integrates with a contrib module. Is that contrib module, is that hook it provides going to be stable through all of Drupal 7? And is there going to be a migrate path to Drupal 8? This we would have to change for Drupal 8, but probably the day Drupal 7 came out, this code would have worked, and it will work until Drupal 7 is sunsetted. So I think when you're thinking about, okay, am I going to throw out some custom code versus use a contrib module, this is, I think, as maintainable because of the particular hook it uses. So you have to think, okay, am I using like a core hook that's pretty stable, or am I using something that in contrib that's likely to change? And the other thing is, in my case, I would have had to patch that module anyways to get it to do what I wanted. So in that case, this also becomes more maintainable, but it's like a balancing act. It's definitely not always more maintainable.
I think there's also one other thing to consider, and that's drush. I mean, it's very easy to say, drush DL and view mode enabling. You have to remember or know which hook to use to do that. So, I mean...
Yeah, if you don't know, but, I mean...
Well, it's also, even if you do know it, sometimes you have to look up the particular layout, or you have to look up, it's one thing, just download a drush and enable it. It's another thing to look up the hook.
So, but what if I release this as a module, and you could drush download this?
Then it's either way.
But in this way, then it would be less overhead for your site.
Yeah.
The other example I do in the presentation is page title. And page title, like, if you look at it is great if you need it, but also you would install it, say, if I just wanted to, on a node, change a title. And in that case, page title is implementing hook node insert, hook node delete, all the hook CRUD hooks, all the taxonomy CRUD hooks. So I think it's sort of a balancing act. I mean, I think it's a case where if you don't do custom, if most of your projects don't have custom code, I wouldn't push for this solution. But if you're already writing custom code, it's like, I think each module is sort of balancing act of, okay, what am I avoiding coding by putting this module in, and what potential bugs am I introducing because it interacts with a whole bunch of other stuff in my site. I think also, as far as the ability of doing something quickly, if I were to do drush DL entity view modes, I would then have to go into the UI and configure those view modes. Whereas if I use this as a starting point, all I would have to do is set a configuration for each new site. Whereas for each new site in any view modes, I'd have to do that sort of 9 steps.
So you're actually creating view modes with this code. So you release it as a module, and then you're recommending that people edit that module?
No. It's it pulls off of a variable get. So you could put the variable, you could use the conf in either your settings.php if you have a conf.php. Or, potentially, I don't really care how the variable gets there. You could do another method of getting it there. You could use drush.